Hello everyone. So before we log in, it is useful to understand the 5 roles in the workflow. The first is the business user. This is the person who initiates the process. They create the docket, provide the reference or query, and trigger the workflow. Then the second one is the reviewer. The reviewer is responsible for validating the generated output, checking confidence, assessing anomalies, and deciding whether the docket is ready to move forward, needs revision, or should be rejected. The third one is the approver. This role acts as final decision authority. Once the docket has gone through review, the approver provides the governance layer for the final sign-off. The fourth is the data analyst role. This is the person who can initiate the process. They create the docket, provide the reference or query, and trigger the workflow. And this personality have the actual knowledge of the data and the domains. So he can edit the YAML file, which is the heart of our operations, can add the domain and configure as well. And the fifth one is the admin. The admin role oversees platform governance across the system, including workflow and user roles, visibility, and operational traceability as well. Okay, so let's start by the first persona of our workflow, the business user. The system is designed to work with the Microsoft AD for enterprise authentication. From an enterprise standpoint, this means user enters through a familiar sign-in experience, identify it's centrally managed, and the platform can scale without creating a separate access model outside organization standards. I will begin by signing in as a business user. So we are logged in as an business user persona. So in the home, the business user persona shows all the docket generated by that particular user with their current status. If some are in the revision, some are rejected, in review, or approved state as well. And let's move towards the intake. This is where a business request enters the system in a structured way. Instead of sending an email or starting an untracked manual process, the user creates a docket by entering a reference ID and, if needed, an optional context brief. This becomes the control entry point of the workflow. I will enter reference and a short business prompt. Then start the process. What matters here is not just the data entry. The platform is establishing a consistent workflow boundary from the very beginning that improves visibility, standardization, and downstream accountability. Once the request is submitted, it moves into execution. This is where the platform begins its AI-assisted processing. The system takes the intake context, moves through stacked execution, assembles relevant context, organizes signals, and prepares a structured docket for downstream review. What you see here is important from business perspective because it shows that the platform is not only routine work, it is also helping enrich the workflow with intelligence. You can also see the platform supporting context-driven interaction during the execution. This is where users can interrogate the workflow, clarify the context, and improve outcome quality before the docket is finalized. So once the interrogation completed, we can proceed to docket generation. As this execution progresses, the system is moving through a defined set of stages before publishing a review-ready output. So now that the docket has been generated, the next step is review. We can delegate that particular docket to a reviewer. So this is how a business user persona's role comes into the workflow architecture. So now we will switch to the reviewer role. We are now in the reviewer home. This dashboard gives the reviewer a focused queue of assigned work so they can immediately see what is in review, what needs revision, and what has already been resolved. When I open a docket, a reviewer can inspect the output in a governed workspace. This is where the platform support, validation evidence, anomaly awareness, and confidence-led decision making. The reviewer's responsibility is to determine whether the docket is strong enough to move forward, whether it should be rejected, or whether it needs to send back or revision with targeted feedback. Here the reviewer has 3 controlled actions: approve, reject, or request revision. Approve means the docket is ready to advance. Reject means the output should not proceed in its current form. And request revision sends it back into the workflow with specific guidance, so the next iteration is more targeted and traceable. So this is critical in the enterprise setting because final authority often sits with a separate role. The reviewer validates the work, but the approver governs the final decision. So let we review. Adding particular comment and assigning to the approver. So we need to select an approver and then we assign to that approver. After successful approval of that particular docket, the docket is being sent to the approver for the next step of our workflow. So that's how the reviewer persona works into our workflow. I will now switch into the approver view. So now we logged in as an approver. From here, the approver sees only the items relevant to final decision making. They are not creating requests and they are not performing system administration. Their role is focused, controlled, and governance oriented. This separation of responsibility is what gives the process and credibility. It ensures that execution, review, and approval are distinct stages with a clear accountability as well. So now we'll open particular docket, and after adding a comment, approver can approve that particular docket, send back to review, or directly reject from the workflow as well. So once the docket is being approved, the state of the docket changed to approve. So that's how the approver workflow lies into our architecture. So now we will signing in as a data analyst role. So the data analyst is the person who can initiate the process as well. On the home screen, data analyst have the previously generated dockets with their current status. They can create the docket, provide the reference or query, and trigger the workflow as well. And this personality have the actual knowledge of the data and the domains. So he can edit the YAML file, which is the heart of our operations. Can add the domain and configure it as well. So after editing the YAML file, we also implemented the YAML validation states as well. So in the intake, we can easily configure the previous YAML and updated one. So by adding a reference, after reviewing the YAML file, we can generate the docket. Further process is similar like a business user. So after the context is being gathered, we can proceed to docket generation. After the docket is being generated, we can delegate that particular docket to the reviewer as our workflow continues. So that's how data analyst roles lies into our system. We will now sign in as the admin role. So once a decision is made, the value of the platform does not stop at the outcome. Our platform also preserves the full history of the operations. Here we can see the lifecycle visibility across the docket. Who acted, what actions was taken, which reference it relates to, and when that activity occurred. This is essential for enterprise governance because it supports traceability, operational review, and downstream audit readiness as well. Alongside the activity stream, the platform also gives visibility into the reference level activity, execution history, and decision progression. In other words, the workflow is not black box, every stage is observable. The workflow monitors help us to identify the reference ID with their user, reviewer, approver, and the current status with last updated timestamps as well. User management is where we can onboard new users and remove particular users as well. And reference investigation is where we can investigate particular reference according to our need. So it will help us to check the raw logs, the execution timeline, and overall status of our system as well. So that's how an admin is responsible throughout our workflow system to manage entire platform and the workflow as well.